and welcome to Flatspotted and today's review of the Monaco Grand Prix, which I think was pretty revealing for everything going forward. I think the big question coming out of it is, do we now have a title battle? If not in the drivers, at least in the constructors. There's 24 points now between Ferrari and Red Bull heading into Canada. I didn't think that would be possible a few races ago, but here we are. Ferrari and McLaren now seem to be posing a definite threat to Red Bull in terms of pace, which can only be a good thing going forward. But we'll get into it. Charles Leclerc won the Monaco Grand Prix, his home Grand Prix, for the very first time. Big celebrations. I don't think anybody was unhappy with that. Great race. I mean, once he got the good start, it was a case of just Monaco's hard to overtake on anyway. So, again, qualifying is what it's all about in Monaco. But good race, didn't make any mistakes, and got the win in the end. And he can tick that off his bucket list. I'm intrigued to see if that'll change him as a driver. I mean, that's there's been talk of the Monaco curse. He started pole 2 or 3 times now, and he hadn't managed to win it. And now he has. So I don't know if that'll be a release. Will that help him grow as a driver? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think the big question, just going back to the constructors' battle, is this: Ferrari have a good duo as a team in Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, even though Sainz is in his last year. McLaren have arguably one of the best driver lineups on the grid in Norris and Piastri. Red Bull have Verstappen, who was world class, and Perez, who was good but isn't as good as Leclerc, Sainz, Piastri, Norris. And I don't know, in the long run, as the season progresses, will that work against Red Bull? Like, as we've seen in previous seasons, is it going to be one Red Bull against a 2-car team, basically, in Ferrari and McLaren? Or, before it was like Mercedes and other teams like that. But will Perez be able to contribute? He started the season well, but putting aside the first lap crash in Monaco, his race was pretty much scuppered in qualifying, so he wasn't going to be able to help the situation. Imola wasn't fantastic either. Is this the start of kind of a trend of bad results? Is this going to drag Red Bull down? Because as I said, there's only 24 points between Ferrari and Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship, and I know Monaco is a little bit of an outlier in terms of overall pace and all that kind of thing, but if we get to Canada and Ferrari and McLaren are right on the pace of Red Bull and we have a proper fight for the win and Ferrari win, let's put it this way: if Ferrari wins in Canada and, hypothetically speaking, Max Verstappen fails to finish, or Perez fails to finish, or both of them finish outside the points, Ferrari lead the Constructors' Championship. And all the sounds coming out of silly season is that Perez is going to have his seat renewed. He'll be on the grid with Red Bull next year, which is grand. Like, based on the start of the season, he probably deserves that. But in terms of the rest of the season, will he be able to play second fiddle to Max Verstappen and Red Bull and help fend off Ferrari and McLaren? So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Just on that first lap crash, Magnussen was on the verge of a race ban via the penalty point system. Didn't get any penalty points, didn't get any penalties at all. I know they've been just trying to be kind of lenient with first lap crashes, but I think when the way they dealt with Ocon, for example, he's got a grid penalty for an equally egregious, maybe even less so, I don't know, I mean, it's subjective, but he gets the penalty for his move on his teammate Gasly. I know it was a first lap crash, it was just after Sandoval, just after turn 1, but there was some blame to lie there, I think. I'm surprised he didn't get any penalty for it. But yeah, he gets off that massive crash, massive red flag, took a while to fix the barriers, massive repair bill for Red Bull. Haas had a terrible 24 hours. Between getting disqualified in qualifying and then both cars being eliminated on lap 1 of the Monaco Grand Prix, I mean, yeah, the team debriefing must have been interesting. And they'll be looking to bounce back in Canada. But yeah, and Alpine, we know Gasly and Ocon have a bit of an acrimonious history, but that certainly didn't help. And Faman, that's how you pronounce his name, I think, laying the law down. Ocon could be on the sidelines for Canada. And Jack Doohan as the reserve driver, he could be getting his Grand Prix debut. That'd be really exciting. But look, Ofnar Safnar got the boot halfway through last season, so they're no strangers to laying down the law and making changes if they feel it's for the good of the team. I mean, I can see it from their point of view. It was an egregious move. Lap 1 in Monaco, nearly taking out his teammate, took himself out of the race. And they had good pace this weekend. I mean, I genuinely think both cars could have been in contention for points, the latter end of the points, but 2-point scores from where they were at the start of the season, that's not to be sniffed at. Gasly did get a 10th place finish, so it did get a point for them, but it so nearly could have been nothing. How do you feel about it? Do you think a race ban would be deserved, or just a massive slap on the wrist? Sorry. Moving down, RB, Tsunoda again outpacing Ricciardo. He's put in a good stint this season, Tsunoda. I think he's really grown as a driver. I think he's doing really well and outshining Ricciardo. I mean, you can't say anything else. Ricciardo had the excuse of the chassis earlier in the season. They replaced that. He's just overall hasn't been faster than Tsunoda, and I mean he's out of contention for the Red Bull seat next year. I think that's fairly safe to say. Perez looks safe enough for the minute. But yeah, I didn't see it coming. I genuinely thought he'd be faster than Tsunoda, and I'd say Red Bull did too. But look, there's a long way to go in the season. He could still turn it around, but yeah, intrigued to see how it goes. Williams' usual story, Albon on the pace, finished in the points. Sargent out of the points, never looked like getting anywhere near the points. And I think everyone's quietly convinced this is going to be Sargent's last season. I know there were rumours that he may get the boot early, as in the middle of this season. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. They did have to find a driver that they could commit to long term, I think, if they were going to do that. And there's rumours that they're trying to get Antonelli an early super license to get him into Williams early. I don't know what benefit that would be, considering he's off to Mercedes potentially next season. So I don't know what benefit that would be to Williams to have him as a stopgap for someone else. There's also rumours that Sainz could be going there. His options are dwindling, although I still think it's probably most likely he'll end up at Silver/Audi. And obviously if they went the Sainz way, they obviously couldn't get him in the car before next season. He's with Ferrari till the end, and he's not, even if it was an option, he wouldn't want to jump from Ferrari to Williams that early because of the pace gap. I just feel like Sargent's on borrowed time now. And I hate saying that about drivers. I mean, it's nothing personal against them. It's just the pace isn't there. Another tough weekend for Aston Martin. Both cars out of the points. Stroll hit the wall at the Nouvelle chicane, got a puncture. Yeah, not a great weekend for them. Sauber, same story. They're the only team now with no points on the board in the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, it didn't look like getting near the points again. So I mean, I feel sorry for Carlos Sainz in this situation. His options are dwindling. I don't think he's getting Mercedes. He's probably not getting Red Bull either. His options at this stage are basically Sauber, Audi or Williams. Unless there's a monumental shift in the dynamic of Aston Martin and they decide to get rid of Stroll, he won't be going there either. So, and you look at that team, and they're obviously going through it. There's a transition awaiting Audi, but when Audi gets there, they're not going to be up the top of the grid straight away. That's going to take a few years of building to that. Yeah, so I feel very sorry for him. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Next stop is Canada, and I can't wait to see what the pace is on the top teams. Can Ferrari and McLaren continue to challenge Red Bull for race victories? See you then.